Using nested analytical frameworks to understand change in complex systems, from the paradox of intentional emergent coherence to the evolutionary phenomenology of resilience to the realization of autotelic purpose. The evolutionary phenomenology of resilience, EPR, and the realization of autotelic purpose, RAP, are two frameworks for understanding how complex systems change. The RAP is an extension of the EPR, and the EPR is an extension of the EAC, Emergence-Autopoiesis-Coherence framework, that I originally called the paradox of intentional emergent coherence. The presence of intention is moot and it is not a paradox, so I have settled on calling it the EAC. Autopoiesis intermediates between emergence and coherence. Through empirical application, I discovered that EAC cycles could be embedded or nested inside EAC cycles. So one could theoretically speak of the autopoiesis of coherence, the emergence of emergence, etc., and even at another level of nestedness, the emergence of the autopoiesis. But also through empirical application to the evolution of international political phenomena, such as the European Parliament and the Soviet political system, I discovered that this simple embeddedness ad infinitum not only was intellectually unsatisfying, but also did not adequately describe the phenomena in sufficient detail. It is not turtles all the way down. The reasons for this have to do probably with the openness of such systems to physical and technological change, and possibly with the natural laws concerning the evolution of international and domestic political systems. In this short presentation, I can only present these frameworks, explain their highlights, and show how they distinguish things from one another. Necessarily, I will draw on work already published that illustrates their application to really existing phenomena in detail. Here I will concentrate instead on the theoretical exposition, the concepts that drive it, and the categories that result from it. The conceptual details of the EAC were developed through my work on international parliamentary institutions, IPIs, beginning over 20 years ago, when they were just starting to proliferate in world politics. The study of IPIs, together with its related subject of parliamentary diplomacy, is now a mini subdiscipline that crosses the fields of political science, sociology, and international policy studies of a wide range of current issues and issue areas. I have no time to tell you how I developed the framework, and anyway, you are interested only in the results. The EAC is a second-order cybernetic expression of what otherwise appears as a first-order cybernetic process. Time constraints upon this presentation do not allow me to explicate this in any detail, but since this is a video presentation, you can halt it and look closer. The description of the video also includes hyperlinks to publications that give extensive explanations. So now I continue to explain how the EAC cycle produced the EPR. This was due to my studies of international parliaments, including the European Parliament in particular. The fact that the evolution of a complex system is path-dependent militated against the simple nestedness or embeddedness of qualitatively undifferentiated EAC cycles within, for lack of better terms at the moment, meta-emergence, meta-autopoiesis, and meta-coherence. The EPR depicts how this is the case. This is one figure here, which I've split in two in order to fit on the slide. You can see how they are connected. I found that the EPR characterizes not only international parliaments, but international institutions in general, the Soviet political system, as well as international systems such as, but not limited to, the Cold War system from 1947 to 1990. Again, EPR stands for Evolutionary Phenomenology of Resilience, And it explains, among other things, exactly how it is the case that too much resilience is a bad thing because it increases fragility. This becomes crucial at the transition from autopoiesis to coherence, where the system risks mobilizing old solutions to deal with new qualitatively different development tasks. In the case of the European Parliament, the system has stagnated and metastasized and over-institutionalized itself. In the case of the Cold War international system, the system stumbled and finally fell following the decline of superpower cooperation under the early 1970s Soviet-American détente. In the case of the Soviet political system, the system simply eventually broke. Other examples can be given with the use of the EPR framework's categories to frame and explain every major development. It turns out that the EPR, despite phenomenology being in its name, is not what the sociologist Amitai Etzioni called a real sequence. Rather, it is what he calls a functional statement. And indeed, the levels of the EPR were originally constructed by considering what were the functions that an IPI had to execute in sequence in order to emerge, to self-create autopoiesis, and to cohere. The widespread introduction of the Internet has changed the way that IPIs can accomplish these functions, and that in turn has meant that the evolution of the world population of IPIs has gone in different directions before and after the Internet. But this is not the place to go into detail about that. The RAP, Realization of Autotelic Potential, depicts the real sequence on the right, of which the EPR is the functional statement. Like the EPR, the RAP's levels are mostly characterized by English renderings of categories from classical Greek philosophy or based on it, which are also given along with Latin calques. Unlike the EPR, the RAP also includes Russian translations of the categories that are sometimes more expressive than the English renderings. That is simply because the RAP was first presented at an online conference, 15 June 2020, held by the State Academic University for the Humanities in Moscow. The RAP, embedding the EPR, applied to the Soviet political system, which in turn embedded the EAC, applied to the Khrushchev and Brezhnev regimes of the Soviet system, was, at that conference, applied to analyze the evolution of the Russian state from 1547 to the present and projected into the early 22nd century. I conclude. The EAC, EPR, and RAP are also, almost accidentally, externalizations of introspective interpretations about how I myself have learned and not learned things, how I have survived tumultuous and even traumatic events, how I have so far almost miraculously adapted to consecutive radical changes in the conditions of my life. However, the EAC, EPR, and RAP were in the first place constructed by reference to the political phenomena mentioned in the presentation, in the second place validated by comparison among objects belonging to the same class of political phenomena, in the third place justified by checking the internal logic of the frameworks themselves, and only in the fourth place by reference to individual psychology. And that concludes my presentation on using nested analytical frameworks to understand change in complex systems. Thank you.